morning, everybody. 28th of April, 2025. It's Monday, and it's a strange day. It's 28th. That's not 1st of May. But as you see, there's not very many people around. Why that is, I have no idea. I guess some people are using this as maybe a vacation day. And then tomorrow, well, whatever. I don't know when the 1st of May is. What is it? A couple, 3 days from now. That will be a holiday. But anyway, temperature -2 at the moment, at least according to my phone. Maybe it's a little bit colder. Very strange. I don't even know why. So it's a nice morning. Okay, -2. Wow. Yeah, and here I am still talking about the peace process or PIS process, and I don't know. You know, if you listen to Sergei Lavrov, he says, oh, there's some hope and they're making some sort of progress. Trump says the same thing. You know, and you get fooled a lot of the time by a lot of what is going on. And, you know, Trump started off saying, oh, I'll do it before my presidency, before I take office. Of course, he originally started, I'll get it done in 24 hours. Then it was 20th of April. 20th of April's come and gone. And we don't have a peace agreement yet. So who knows? Who knows what's going to go on here? And it still seems like the parties are about 100 miles apart. You never know. Trump, I guess he was out on the tarmac. It looked like he was out on the tarmac, or he's normally either on the tarmac or at a golf course or something when he's outside. And he says something like, well, yeah, I think that Zelensky's going to give up on Crimea. And, you know, it's been part of Russia for a long time now. Well, in some aspects, it's been part of Russia for a long, long time, for over 1,000 years. But, you know, it was administratively part of Ukraine, and none of those people ever wanted to be a part of Ukraine, just like the Donbass and many other regions. But, you know, they had a lot of these mistakes done during the time of the Soviet Union. And and now you see the repercussions. You know, it was part of the Soviet Union in those days. People didn't say much of anything, so everybody went along with that. And it's sort of like Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia was a conglomeration of a whole lot of different countries. It was kept under wraps by Tito. Everybody said, well, what a great thing, you know, and then eventually these things, they don't really work out as they're supposed to work out. And you have the West always come in and say, you should be an independent people. Oh, whatever. They start giving them money and start looking for people that hate the regular regime, in case the United States hates that regime himself. So they work on them, and, you know, very, very, very sad thing. And it's like known that these Eastern Slavs, you know, virtually they're all the same people, and they've all intermarried and intermixed for a long, long time. And you had somebody come up like this Bandera knucklehead. You know, it's sort of like the Adolf Hitler. He is an Adolf Hitler, actually, very much the same, but he's actually much worse. And he scared Adolf Hitler, and so, like I've mentioned in a lot of videos, so Adolf Hitler had him put into a prison, but of course he allowed him to direct his, Stefan Bandera, to direct his operations against Poland and Belarus, Russia, you know, to try to kill as many people, mostly Jews. They were trying to kill Jews. You know, what really makes it very strange. It's very strange. And I've mentioned that in a lot of videos, and I think a lot of people have also mentioned it, how that is. How is it that you have Jewish people supporting people that hate and want to kill Jews? You know? Nobody wants to see that man behind the curtain, I guess. You guys know the deal on all of that. Nobody can understand this. Kolomoisky, who backed Zelensky, both of them are Jews. Lots of other Jews. So it's like weird. You know, these people, they hate Jews, they want to kill Jews, but they're controlled by Jews, and Jews are the ones that support them. I don't know. What a crazy, crazy, crazy world. A lot of contradictions in people's philosophies and what they do. And, you know, a lot of time you think about it, and it's maybe even possible. Like I always talk about Uriah Heep. You know, Zelensky is a Uriah Heep type character. If you guys are, you know, familiar, just look it up maybe in Google, and I guess they call it a sycophant. Zelensky is like, I guess he's a sycophant, or whatever, claims to be, we're so humble. And, when he stands a chance of actually losing, look at, apparently what has been put out by a lot of the American diplomats is Zelensky is agreeable when there's no cameras running. And then when the cameras are running, he says a completely different thing. And you can have your own theories on why he does this. I don't know. I get my theories. I don't know how accurate they are, but, you can try to look at it from different perspectives. Maybe Zelensky doesn't even know what the heck he's doing. Maybe he's just throwing this stuff out, and he wants to use the public as like judges or something like that. And but like I said, American diplomats, they come out and say he says one thing in private when there's no cameras running, and when the cameras are turning, he changes his mind. And I guess just Wednesday there was some big article, I think it was from the UK, and Zelensky again saying there is no way he will ever let Crimea be a part of, well, it's already a part of Russia. Well, no way he will ever consent to that. So, and it's beyond any doubt he doesn't want to consent to the Donbass, which is Donetsk's Republic and Lugansk, and then of course there's Kherson and Zaporozhye. He doesn't want them to be a part of Russia either, even though those are all Russian people. And I don't know. I keep talking about the Russian history, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but none of these people ever wanted to be a part of Ukraine, and this was mistakes by these Soviet Union leaders, which were all very, very sympathetic towards Ukraine, in contradiction what the Ukrainians say. The Ukrainian, I'm not saying all the people, but a lot of what is going on is these people, and I hate to say this because it sounds like I'm lumping in all Ukrainians, but a lot of these people are just exaggerating, lying bastards, to put it bluntly. And they're very corrupt. If you want to look up the word corruption in the dictionary, there's a picture of Ukraine there. And even the left in the United States, they were even saying that for a long, long time. It's an extremely corrupt, some said it's the most corrupt country on planet Earth, and most everybody agrees that it's the most corrupt country in Europe, beyond any doubt. And you've got to say there's a lot of corrupt countries. If you lived in Germany for a while, and you know people that have traveled to places like Romania, and I've known Romanians. The Romanians say their country is very corrupt. At least it was in those days. I'm sure it still is. You just can't root corruption out so quickly. The only one that I have known that has ever been able to do that is Lukashenko, the leader of this country right here. And just for that, you have a lot of the corrupt people in the so-called West, Ukraine, Poland, the Baltics, corrupt countries. Yes, they are corrupt countries. And they have their people, and they have influence over here as well. And they try. They try to get Belarus to become corrupt again and pushing it in. And it's a lot of us that come from different countries here. I'm talking about, in my school, because I am in the Russian language program, obviously those people are not from Russia. They're not from Belarus. And so they see what they see here. And virtually everybody, it would be very strange if you can run into some sort of a person from a foreign country that doesn't see and say the same things that I'm saying. Is, they love Belarus as far as the fact that it's not corrupt. It's very safe. You don't get raped. Women don't get raped. There's no crime. And I'll tell you what, if somebody commits a crime, the government here, it moves heaven and earth to find the criminals. It's not so much so in Russia, but even though it is quite a bit so. Look at this. So it's this frozen stuff here on the ground here. Woo! Yeah, you see little ice crystals and stuff somewhere. I don't know. I don't see any on cars, but I see a little bit of ice on this car up here, I believe. Yeah, like I said, it's cold. So, But it's nice. Look at this. It's like Sunday. It's like Sunday. There's nobody out. I really don't understand this. Like I said, here I live in this country, and it's not like I understand everything, but it's like a Sunday. I think there's probably more people out in this area maybe on Sunday. I don't know. But for Angie, who's into landscaping, and I'm talking right now about like corruption in Belarus and all that. And you look at what I'm looking at right now, and look at this entire walk, and in so many areas across the street, everywhere. Look at the grass. And we just had winter, but look at this. The grass is mowed, and well, it was a nighttime and there's people not working, but sometimes you see some garbage out from these birds. So I just saw a bird. Where did he go? There's one right over. Well, that's a pigeon. He's not that guy. You're not so bad over there. But it's these crows. Normally, if somebody ate something and there's a little bit of food material on it, they dig through the garbage cans. Worse than dogs or raccoons. A lot of you said, well, maybe it's raccoons. There's no raccoons here. I don't know if there is anywhere in Belarus. Any wild raccoons is what I'm saying. But anyway, this stuff costs money. You got to pay people to cut the grass and do all this sort of thing. Taxes are not astronomically high here. And like I said, you get an apartment and these are even old apartments here. This was probably maybe built before the war, and you can bet everything German soldiers were at one time put in these apartments. Just like my apartment that I live in was built in 1934, and when they took the floor up, these guys that were trying to destroy the apartment, anyway, there was some sort of a newspaper in there, and it was a 1934. A little piece said it on there, the date was on it, and I knew it was from the 30s anyway. And we have bayonet marks on the stairwell where maybe German soldiers were pounding their bayonets into the tiles in the stairwell. Some chips on there. Maybe I'll show that at some point in time. I'd like to wait until my apartment gets finished. Look at icicles. No, it's fake. Just kidding. No, but like I said, when you have an apartment here, you don't pay that much. It's like it's different maybe from city to city, and maybe from apartment building to apartment building. A lot of that maybe comes in from the heat bill, even though the heat bills are far less than what they are in the West. But I think ours averages, which includes, it's not like one bill. You got separate bills and you got to pay them, of course. So it's not like one lump sum and they say this is what you got to pay. But you got electricity and your heating and your cable TV, garbage pickup, building maintenance costs, all of that sort of thing. And it maybe averages about per month, per year, it's because it's maybe a little bit more in the wintertime because of the heating bill, but it's in US dollars, maybe like $50 a month for everything. You don't even, you can't even pay your building maintenance costs for that kind of money in the West. You pay much more than that. As a matter of fact, your heating bill is probably more than that as well. Your electricity bill, what do you pay for your electricity bill in the West? Maybe $100. So in other words, much cheaper. And then, like I said, the government owns that. Do you think the government is trying to steal the money from people when you pay that sort of a deal? When you're talking about thousands, hundreds, let's be realistic. Millions of people in Belarus are paying that kind of money, and that's not that much money. And you think if they were corrupt, they would charge a lot more. My subway pass, what I have to pay per month for subway, unlimited, and bus, I can take all the buses, all the trolley buses, and all the metro cars all day long, anytime I want, and I think that's 51 rubles, and what would that be? It's less than $20 for the whole month. So it's maybe $17, $18. I remember back in Germany, it was more than 30 euros a long time ago. We're talking like maybe 25, 30 years ago. I think it was like 30 euros for a monthly bus pass in the place I was living. So anyway, let's get into the news. Why did you guys distract me like this? But anyway, a lot of you, I thank a lot of you guys that made comments about the walks and things, that you like it. Belarus, like I said, is a nice country, but it's a beautiful country, and a lot of this has to do with the government. So as you're over in the West, and they keep slamming the government. Oh, it's corrupt. You're not allowed to sing in public. You're not allowed to dance in public. All kinds of fake stuff. It's incredible. And of course, I was tricked a little bit, and I feel terrible about it, because I was making a big joke about these North Korean soldiers and said they were invisible and all that. And then it comes out, and even I guess North Korea admitted they did have soldiers in the Donbass. So I was fooled on that one. So the Russians aren't perfect either. Maybe they do, but they didn't lie. They didn't come out and say there weren't Korean soldiers. Actually, Lukashenko thought it was ridiculous. He didn't think they had North Korean soldiers. He said it. He made one comment at one time, months ago or whatever, and he was saying they don't even want Belarusian soldiers there. So there's no North Korean soldiers. He was just maybe uninformed on that at that time. So, oh no, did I just say something bad about the government? They're going to come after me. Of course they're not. Like I said, a lot of this stuff, what they talk about Belarus is just complete ridiculousness. And I don't know. So let's go into the news here. I started that already. The peace agreement, I tell you what, even if they get a peace agreement, it's not going to be a peace agreement, because I don't think the Nazis are ever going to go along with anything. The Nazis, they want, and like I was saying, I said this all along, Zelensky wants complete and total victory, even though he's losing. It's incredible. It's incredible. He's losing, but he demands victory. It's like, it's, a lot of people are talking about this is a real first, where you have somebody who's losing making all the demands. It's kind of like insanity. It's like, how in the heck can somebody be doing this? I don't know. It reminds me of this, what is this, in Monty Python, where I don't know, like somebody gets their arm chopped off and said, I can still fight. And then they get their other arm chopped off some night. I can still fight. They start cutting all their legs. Come on. And then all they have left is their teeth. Come on. Are you chicken? I don't know. It sounds like Zelensky. But the sad thing is, he's massacring his people. It's a huge massacre of Ukrainian people. Absolute massacre. Unbelievable. He'll sacrifice his entire country and all of his people. And it's like I said, I say it's for money. I said lately, I used to say it's the ideology, but in truth it is both. It's both the Nazi ideology. Adolf Hitler was doing that. Remember when he was sending children? He was rounding up small children, like 12 years old, putting uniforms on them and wanting them to go fight and die. Yeah. So that's what it's all about. Anyway, so let's keep going here before I get myself bad. And then Ukraine, I guess, this whole thing, and Lavrov was saying, I think he was mentioning two main root causes. One of them, of course, was NATO expansion. And NATO says, don't look at that. Don't look at that, And NATO is not a defensive alliance. It is an offensive alliance. It is there to exert the dominance of these Western people and their ideology. Apparently their ideology was a mismatch of a whole bunch of things, and of course it changes, it's dynamic, so they threw in the homosexuality and the transgenderism. That was part of it, and they're going lately, so they were going around the world and saying you have to be a homosexual and you have to support mutilating your children, cutting off their genitals and doing all this kind of stuff. And I don't really know the point of that, and it makes you wonder what does that have to do with power? But apparently it does. Wow. Well, I can make a nice photo here. Look at this. And you got to, if you tweak it, I don't know anything about the this, my phone, it does this. I can, you can adjust colors or something, but you have these, I think it's Adobe Lightroom and things. You can change a lot of stuff and it can still look natural. But if you look at this, so nice warm light in the morning time, in the trees, tweaks things a little bit so that, and I guess you can take things out like that sign over there. I guess you can remove them from photos. Just maybe make the nice warm colors from this sunlight, early morning sunlight of the grass over here. And these trees, I guess they're birch or whatever. Over here they call them Russian trees because there's a lot of these in Russia. So you guys know that. Okay. Anyway, I talk about crazy stuff. Maybe that's why. If I just talk straight news, I don't know. I could maybe get more views and things, but I'm out. I don't know. I'm not a ambitious person with this channel, and I'm glad there's people that actually like the stuff I talk about and places I go or whatever. And okay, let me keep going here. Anyway, this whole thing, you know, a lot of people put some put a date of 2004 when all of this stuff started and things, but it's a big conquest of the West, and you guys know that watch this channel, and it's very sad, and it's just very similar to what's going on, like still even in Yemen, and you know, Trump talks about, oh, stop the killing and all this sort of thing, and I think towards the end of this, I just looked and saw one of the latest reports right before I started making this video was the United States, their latest bombing of last night of Yemen, and you know, they killed a lot of women and children again, but you know, the Trump doesn't like the killing. He doesn't like the killing over in Ukraine, but of course he can look the other way. He can look the other way when it's happening in Yemen. They're terrorists. They're terrorists who killed a total of 5 people. 5 people in the bombings. So it's like, what? But the United States isn't terrorists. Or Israel, they bombed a big apartment building last night in Beirut, and obviously they killed a lot of people there, and it was a very destructive bomb. If you see some of the footage, it's really something. Huge crater. It's like a big, huge crater where this apartment building was at. I mean, they're using, I don't know, one time I mentioned something about them using these big bunker buster bombs. They use it for certain things, and I never said that they are actually using those. I said they're using some of the most destructive bombs that the United States has and dropping them in civilian areas, and that's a place, you know, when people buy these bombs from the United States, you know, the United States is a big arms dealer. They send a lot of bombs all over the place, but most people never get these bombs because they feel they can't use those. You can't use them in residential areas. And Israel gets them, and they love getting them. And they love, you know, they don't really care how many, what do they call, collateral damage people that they can kill. The United States cares very little as well. And you know, and we're just talking now about Trump, and he mentioned something again. Again, he mentioned something about Russia. When Russia bombed this military awards ceremony, and there happened to have been some civilians there, and Ukraine purposefully invites civilians so that Russia won't bomb them, so they can have it out in the open, and you know, and it's like good PR for the military, I guess, you know. Look at these heroes, you know. But there was not that many civilians, and I don't know, maybe it's 5. I don't know how many civilians died, but I think a few were children. I mentioned that in a couple of videos already, you know. But Trump keeps bringing that up, but he doesn't bring up when he's killing children. It's really something. Oh, look at all that light out there. So I was going to go over here by that statue. You guys might have seen it. The sun is right behind it right now, so I can't show it to you. I don't think. I don't know if it will silhouette this thing. You know, cameras are not like our eyes. So, well, it's in the distance over there. I was going to walk over that way. I can get some good photos too from that. Or, you know, photos or some film footage. As you see, I love mornings. I said it yesterday. Beautiful, beautiful warm light. Too bad there's this traffic noise here. I spoke too soon. You know, now there's a lot of traffic. When I started out, it was very little. 6 something in the morning. Make sure there's no dew on the grass. It's very strange. There isn't. At least not yet. Don't want to get my feet wet. So good, good. Well, they didn't mow this place yet. Okay. Let me stop walking and I can talk. You guys might hear some news here. Okay. So let's see. Whenever I'm watching videos, a lot of times I see people mentioning ideology, and they talk They even talk about the ideology in the West. They talk about the ideologies of a lot of places. But I saw one, and it was with Jackson Hinkle. Jackson Hinkle was interviewing somebody who was special forces and all, and I think he was talking about ideology of the West and all that, which, like I said, is, they added this LGBT and BLM and all this sort of stuff, trying to get a whole bunch of people also to be crazy, say, hey, that's me they're talking about. I'm going to join their cause. I don't know what the heck the left is. Bernie Sanders is out there. He's still trying to look for relevance. I don't know. What in the heck is he doing, That guy, he's a mental wimp. He'll just fold whenever the establishment wants him to fold for whoever they're going to fold for, and he acts like a tough guy right now, but he folds and he folds and he folds. Folded for Hillary, folded for Kamala Harris, he folds and he folds. I mean, Bernie Sanders, I don't even know how anybody could ever go and see this guy. So, and he talks about some relevant and good things, but, then he'll just fold. He'll just wither up like a rotten flower or something. It's not a guy to be looking at. But one person I did want to mention, and I haven't seen him lately, but it's Mike Jones. If any of you watch things from Mike Jones or have regular channels, I'd like to know what he's up to now. He's doing, last that I heard, he was always doing a lot of charity work for the Donbass and bringing things down there. And one of the things, as now we're talking about ideology, that that he brought out, and I knew about this before, and maybe a lot of you other people watching this did as well. But they talk, in Ukraine, and they indoctrinate, unfortunately, their children from early ages, and it's much like the Hitler Youth back in those days. But the Hitler Youth, that was just a short time, and the Ukrainians have been doing this for a much longer period of time, and it took a huge defeat for a lot of this stuff to end, and even a lot of this stuff survived after the war, even in Germany, but it was downplayed. And for the most part of the society right now is still peace-loving in Germany. So it was like a pendulum, a reaction of swinging back and forth. But in Ukraine, they've been working on this for quite some time, even during the war, before the war, this Banderite ideology. And a lot of this, it was like hatred of Jews. And of course, now, as we see, it's hatred of Russians. And of course, it's spread very much into the Baltics, all the way into the United States. You got John Bolton. You got people even under the Trump administration, that have some sort of a hatred from Russia. And, Zelensky, of course, he comes out and he says that his hatred is even beyond, he said, not even 99%. It's well beyond that. And he just hates Russians and calls them a species. And yet you're supposed to have a dealing with this guy, And it was very strange. Lavrov talks about it. He was much different at the beginning, and he was running on peace with Russians, and then he turned complete, total, and utter saturated Nazi now, I don't think anybody could be coming out, and saying that just as an act. I don't know. But anyhow, Mike Jones, he was showing like a lot of children's books and things. They indoctrinate them to hate Russians and to think badly of Russians. Zelensky says they're a species, and of course they're telling people that Russians are not humans and all that. They do that in the West as well. They do it like in Lithuania and Estonia and Latvia, places like that, maybe even in Poland, and they train you to hate Russia. You must hate. But I talk about that so many times. And it's part of this thing. He's not going to allow the Crimea, which is filled with Russians, 97%. He's not going to allow that to go to Russia. And of course, a lot of this, the future is that he's going to start exterminating people, to, put them to death if they do not bend the knee and become slaves of the Ukrainians, of the master race, the masters, So some guy watching me over there. A strange looking dog. Looks like a half cat dog. You guys can't see it. Anyway, keep on going. Yeah. Well, anyway, they would exterminate, and that's what they were doing in the Donbass area when Russia stepped in. They said, Zelensky himself said they could all just go. If they have sympathies toward Russia, get out. So you will stop speaking Russian. They were trying to exterminate the entire culture of Russian removing all statues, everything. And they're doing the same thing in, like I said, in the Baltic states and everything. Pushkin, Pushkin, what was Pushkin? Was he a soldier? Never picked up a gun in his life, probably. Anyway, matter of fact, he was apparently part black, maybe in his a couple generations removed. So, okay. Oh, there was also something from Sudan. They showed some things. Maybe it's going to start up there. A lot of people are saying, they had a, and I don't even know what it was about. Maybe they're supposed to be Muslims. They took these people and they said their faith is not strong enough. They're men, not men. They're young men. They're boys. Like you saw some that looked like they're 10 years old and stuff. And they piled them up kind of and pushed them in there. And then they started executing them, shooting them. And they're just sitting there. And it's like, well, what can they do? They got like maybe 7 or 8 soldiers with machine guns around them, and and they killed them all. And then they show afterwards just a pile of them, and they're walking over it and very proud. And maybe they, real Muslim fundamentalists. And you can thank the United States for the most part of this, and their hatred of Muslims and bombing them and all that. George Bush, his sort of a deal. And acting like they don't, but they do hate Muslims. Well, I mean, I'm talking about a lot of the political elite in America. Anyway, but they're just Africans. They have black skin. They don't matter. Just like if they were from the middle, if they're Arabs or Asians, not South Koreans or Japanese, but if the other Asians, they're not important. They're not that much more important than Russians. These are really terrible people. Makes you wonder how this hatred and how we're supporting this in the world. I thought we were beyond this stuff. Okay. It's like a hierarchy. Who are the greatest people? Who are the master race? Of course, it's the Israelis. The Israelis are the master race. One fingernail of a Zionist Israeli is worth more than 10 lives of the Goy, as they say, which is us, the Goy, Americans and all that sort of stuff. And Americans come in second place, and the Brits, they come in third place, and then the other people, they kind of fall after that, and the Russians are way down at the bottom, of course, as we know. Oh, maybe who is it, the Africans or the Russians? Which one are the bottom of the list of species? Anyway, you can see it all yourself, you guys. Let's see. Yes, and bombing Beirut, Israel bombing Beirut again, like I said, big, huge crater. And obviously they killed a lot of people. I mean, the pieces of the building. It's like it's much easier to clean up that mess because a lot of time they were bombing, you got these big pieces of concrete. But this time everything is like demolished into little pieces. It's just incredible. And the buildings all around it are damaged. Makes you wonder how many people they killed on that one. That was last night. And like I said, if Russia does anything like this, and if 2 civilians die, that's world news, and Trump can do it, Israel can do it, they can just do it every single day, every single night, 24/7, killing innocent people. But if any innocent people die at Russia's hands, oh boy, look at how evil they are, The only thing is, Russia doesn't do it on purpose, and the United States doesn't really care. Collateral damage, and the Israelis do it on purpose. The Israelis, they kill, and they love to kill the children. They've even come right out and said it, and they smile, and they laugh, and they think it's so fantastic. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, boy, oh boy. We all know that. And Trump supports them wholeheartedly. But yet he wants to stop the killing. I don't know what he's going, I have no idea what the heck Trump's attitude is, why he doesn't want the killing of all those people in like Ukraine and Russians, but he has nothing against killing Palestinians. Okay. Those fires in the port, or maybe you want to call it a big fire in the port in Iran, I don't know. They say it's starting up again. And Russia sent some planes there to help extinguish the fire. And apparently in the eastern part of Russia, there are massive, massive, massive forest fires. And it's not even really being reported. I saw something like that, and it's huge areas. We're talking miles and miles of forest fires. I don't know if that's true. I saw that in one report. Somebody was showing some evidence of it. I don't know. Oh, Trump said his meeting with Zelensky in, what was it, yesterday? Whatever, when he was talking there at the Pope's funeral, Zelensky again was begging for weapons, you know? So I think Zelensky feels that he convinced Trump, or at least Trump made him think that way, and Trump is now putting out about Russia, like I said yesterday, but other people aren't saying that. And Trump is, he was believing in the integrity of Russia, and Zelensky, apparently, like I said, a fabulous con man. Apparently, he's made Trump, think twice about that. And Trump is now saying he's going to see what happens before he starts sending more weapons to Ukraine. So, in other words, he's open-minded, even though he was against it before, of sending more weapons to Ukraine. So I guess he wants Russia bigger concessions. And of course, he just extended the sanctions of Russia. And then everybody's saying, well, how come he's nice to Russia? Well, he's not nice to Russia. He's actually indeed doing far more against Russia than he is against Ukraine. So the weapons keep going to Ukraine. The sanctions, he's extended them against Russia, and now he's threatening to give more weapons to Ukraine, and on and on and on. So it's just some verbal signals that it looks like there might be some, again, some dealings with Russia, but maybe just to abuse Russia. Anyway, we'll see how things go as well. So, like I said, he's still considering sending more weapons to Ukraine, and he said that. He basically said that. You have to see that on your own, that interview. Just like what I was saying, that anyway, all the stuff, you have to see the video from yesterday. Anyhow, so Illinois billionaire governor, his name is Pritzker, he's calling for mass disruptions at Republican events and Republican rallies. He's telling everybody to be disruptive and protesting. Be loud and disturb, all of these things. I guess maybe part of that is, you had Bernie Sanders out there, old crazy Bernie. He's given his thing against oligarchy, even though he is, in effect, he's an oligarch himself. He's paid big money from the pharma industry, the ones that made the vaccines, Old Bernie is big in favor of that, and in fact, Trump is the one that even started that. But anyway, he was making some speech somewhere, and a boat came by, some sort of a barge had a big sign on it that said Trump. They were blowing their foghorn while Bernie was trying to speak. So maybe this Illinois governor, who's a Democrat, remember Obama is from Illinois originally. So anyway, that's a Democrat state. So they tell you to be mean to the Republicans and disturb their rallies and things like that. So anyway, but that's about all I have to say for right now. And like I said, I'd like to do some videos since I have a little bit of time right now. I don't know if I can sustain it, doing it at some time in the days. Yesterday things weren't, I don't know, there's probably nice places to go and sit down and have a beer, but I'm thinking, well, what would I talk about? I've already talked about the news now. So unless some big major event happens. Look at the size of this pigeon up here, if you guys can. You'll probably take off. Wow. Look at the size of that guy. Anyway, okay, so that's about it. I'll try to get another nice photo right around here for you guys, for my, what do they call it, thumbnail, if you guys like that. They say, oh, you should write something on the thumbnail, you get more views and things like that. Maybe I'll do that sometime. But otherwise, I'll get some kind of a nice photo here for all of you. Okay, thanks for joining me. Thanks for those comments. I really appreciate that. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.